And moving on to the next session, we are going to have a panel discussion on art of leadership and inspiring change. First, let me introduce the panel moderator, who is the regional head of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu at nasscom. He focuses on driving various nasscom forums and initiatives for global capability centers, IT services, BPM, and small and medium enterprises. He comes with a strong leadership and strategic planning experience. He is also a board of director at Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. Now let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Bhaskar Verma. Now let me invite the first panelist of this discussion, who leads the IDP Digital Campus as director, leading a team of 700 digital techies carrying over 4,500 person-hours of experience between them and delivering sustainable, continuous business value to IDP education. She comes armed with about 3 decades of rich experience, including her stints with CTS, Emphasis, and Polaris. She is also currently serving as a member of nasscom's Regional Council of Tamil Nadu State. She loves her pets, firmly believes in balancing her personal life amidst business, and enjoys reading. Please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Neeraja Krishnan as one of our panelists for the discussion. The second panelist for this discussion is currently working as Associate Vice President in Engineering and Research and Development Division of HCL Technologies. In her current role, she is leading a high-performing team, providing product engineering services for telecom and networking clients. She has extensive experience in driving large-scale, complex programs and cross-functional global teams. Please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Jayasri from HCL Technologies, a strong proponent of diversity and inclusion initiatives, as the second panelist for today's discussion. And the third panelist of this discussion is a highly accomplished leader with over 25 years of experience leading global engineering and product teams. She is the Vice President and India Country Head at Genesys, leading Genesys in its India operations. And she also successfully leads engineering for one of the product lines. She is known as a people-centric leader with the ability to successfully grow and build high-performing teams from the ground up. She is a master's in computer science and is a mentor to women in technology industry. She is a mother of 3 teenage boys and enjoys trekking with her husband and traveling as a family in her spare time. Please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Deepa Madhavan from Genesys. And I would request Mr. Bhaskar, the moderator for the panel discussion, to take it from here.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm in a very tough situation today. The topic is art of leadership and change. We all are going through it, whatever the situation, technology is disrupting and all. But my perspective of leadership, what I always feel, the conventional way, and you all will agree with me, it comes with some jazzy designation, and that's called as a leadership. But the way I look at it now, even a fresher or very limited experience person can also be a leader. So things are changing, and that's what I'm going to cover. One disclaimer, I am not with them, I am with you, I'm your representative. If there are any questions, please let me know. I will ask those questions if time permits. So to start with, maybe I will start with you, Deepa. The art of leadership, because as I talked about, it's changing rapidly. And if you can talk about what is that art and what is that secret sauce you see to become a leader, and if you can share any of your experience. Yeah, maybe Deepa, will start with you.
Neeraja.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Neeraja will start with you.
I think, yeah, it is indeed true that leadership is becoming an art more than a science. The biggest changes that are happening today is information is pretty much available with everybody. In fact, the team probably knows far more than what you know. So it's completely changed away from a directional leadership to a far more engaging, open, and a very transparent kind of a leadership. It's absolutely critical that we empower our team to come up with ideas. And with a fast-changing digital pace, it sets even more a tone for the leader to adopt to the change, to enable the change. And of course, the most biggest challenge that the leaders face is how do we actually pick the right choice for the team? So that's where I think it's becoming more of an art, and how leadership is changing in the recent past. Bhaskar.
No, absolutely, nature. Deepa, if I will move to you, and I will make a little bit of change. I will add up with how you see concept of leadership is going or disrupting in the recent times. If you will see any of the leader and forget about the jazzy designation, what would be your advice to become a leader, and what would be that growth path?
Sure, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for attending the session and for nasscom for inviting me, and my panelists, and you as well, Bhaskar. Thank you, guys. I think the amazing thing right now is leaders need to accept the fact that we also have to become students in some ways. We have to learn. It's a very vulnerable place to be, because when we grew up as leaders, you looked at people who had, you think they already know everything, and they've reached that place because they've reached experience, and they've got all these years behind them. But if you see right now, technology has become the greatest disruptor. Whether it's the AI space that we are all talking about, top of mind, we have to become students again and learn the latest in AI, because it's going on so fast, right? And the fact that aspiring leaders need to also recognize that sometimes they need to be students. You have to also accept the fact that you need to learn. And then, think about things like social media, how fast information is transferred. How do you balance what you're saying this second to the next? It gets out there so fast, and so the ability to navigate, to figure out what you're going to say that is different from somebody else, it puts a little bit more pressure on leaders today than it did in the past. But I think the biggest one I would say to aspiring leaders is not to be intimidated by being a student first. Because when sometimes if you feel like you have to know everything, then that's actually a detriment. It ends up affecting you in your career in your long run. So it's okay to be a student in the, learn the technology, become more versatile, and that will really put you in an advantage. And I think that's one of the things I would strongly advise to people who are kind of growing up right now in this landscape of technology evolution.
No, absolutely fantastic point, and I picked the clue from you, Deepa. First you become a student, then become a leader. And if I will move on to Jayasri, the volume and the head count of HCL, we all know. And it's going to be a very tough task. And mentality is changing, but still, I believe people want to have that jazzy designation. You are VP, senior VP and all. But how you are managing in your current organization, how people will become a leader, because now the generations completely, which the one word which I hate, I belong from an oldie generation, then now you have a Gen Z. So how you are seeing leaderships are changing, that skill is changing now?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to good morning all, and thanks to nasscom and Bhaskar for inviting us to this panel discussion. So definitely the diverse or the multi-generational workforce that we are handling today plays a lot of influence in terms like where the leaders have to evolve themselves to handle that particular forum of the workforce. And the primary thing I would expect leaders to have when they are approaching that workforce is being a bit more adaptable and being a bit more approachable, because this new generation, they expect more responsiveness. And try to reduce your perfection expectation. It's okay to take incremental steps. and encourage them as they keep achieving those incremental steps. The other big thing that I observe as a key differentiation parameter is the communication. We have multiple generation of workforce, and the way that we communicate, we have this all hands meet for one particular generation, then we have an email conversation, then we have the WebEx, then we have other collab solutions, and then we have the social media, which is more fancier for the new generation. So encourage that more, and sometimes it is okay, as she said, as Deepa said, to collectively learn with them. So these I find as some critical parameters, and that comes with the adaptability mentality of the leadership, and then understanding and giving space, and do the direct connect with a fresher or a new joiner into the team. So that creates that bond and the belongingness so that they become participator in your organization too.
No, absolutely. And maybe I have a question for audience. How many of you heard this sentence, I have a fantastic idea, but my manager is not listening to me? If you can raise your hand. Have you heard the statement anywhere? Oh, we have a decent crowd. Nobody, only I can see one hand. So, or maybe a decent, they don't want to open up, maybe their bosses are here. So this is something which I have interacted with many of the leaders in the closed room and also with a few junior folks. And there are multiple incidents, and one I'd like to share with you. A fresher person joining McKinsey and leaving in 6 months. And the only reason when I spoke to him, why you are leaving in 6 months, he said, I had a fantastic idea. I went to my manager and he was not having any time for me and I was not heard whether I am at a right place or whether I am doing a relevant stuff. So this is how we are seeing Gen Z and the leadership. So any challenges, Neeraja, you see currently leaders are facing right now? Because it's not going to be a leaders and a Gen Z and millennials, but it's the complete organization. Are you facing any such kind of challenge, and what is your solution to it?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure every leader is facing similar kind of challenges, as you rightly put, Bhaskar. It is also, it's about how do we nurture the young generation, the young minds, which is far more creative, given the volume of information that's available to them, given the volume of digital technologies that is available to them, because it's so much more quicker for people to adopt the digital technology, so much more faster. There are automated code writers, there are automated pretty much everything that you want to do. We've spoken about a lot from the beginning of the session. So the biggest challenge I think the leaders face today is, one, how do you make every team member feel important for their idea? How do you actually encourage them and nurture the thought process of, one, for them to bring up the idea in the first place? Because over a period of time, we've become a bit more potentially risk averse. We got hit by the pandemic, we got hit by so many cybersecurity thefts, a lot of things. So it's absolutely important that we encourage the team to bring up the ideas, give them a space to present the ideas, and potentially, you know, give them a good amount of training and career path in terms of how can they fructify the idea, because anybody can come up with ideas. It's about how can you expand the idea, how can you execute to the idea, which is what is going to make or break the idea. So it becomes absolutely essential for every leader that's in us, and I'm pretty sure everybody has got leadership traits. I go back to the point that you made, Bhaskar. I don't think it's a jazzy title anymore. It's actually genuinely somebody who can actually walk the talk of being a leader rather than carry a title. So it becomes that much more essential for the leader in us, for everybody here, to actually look at those little elements which will make an idea a success, or enable that team member, or empower the team member. And that's what I think is absolutely essential. Give them an open and a transparent kind of a culture for them to be successful in their idea or to fail in it and learn from it, right? I think that's what is emerging today, Bhaskar, and that's how I would address the challenge.
No, absolutely, very well said. Maybe Deepa, I will tweak a little bit this question. In any of the organization, what we see is the middle management layer. That is the backbone of any organization, and that those layers basically interact with the leaders and the junior people, right? Those who are aspiring to be middle managers. So how you see middle managers, their role, and how they are integrating with both the layers at the top and at the bottom side?
Yeah, I think, I'm a huge fan of managers, first-line managers, because they actually make or break the culture of a company, right? You can have all the great visions, you can have all the, values, but the people who actually touch, the majority of your employees is actually middle managers. And I think I'm also, I feel that community needs mentorship, continuous mentorship, needs learning, needs also focused attention from leaders, right? You need to create that safe space for them to also have mentors aligned to them. So managers end up becoming the next generation of leaders. In the future, they take your seats. And it's important for us to think ahead, prepare them for that, and all the challenges that go with being that, right? So I think of leaders and managers the same way as I think of engineering metrics, being available, reliable, in some ways being available to your team, always being available to your leadership, because you are the ones who actually pass that information. You need to be reliable. You need to be that one who kind of keeps your word in many ways. It's a very, very kind of hard role to play, because you end up having to face kind of both sides. You're sandwiched in between. And then to scale yourself, like how do you think you can grow? How are you as managers trying to, grow to the next level of leadership? And I think that scalability is actually very, very important. It takes learning, it takes, mentorship, it takes that self-realization and self-awareness that you are actually such a critical part of a company. The first line managers, unfortunately, are not, sometimes we value leaders much more than we value those first line managers, but I'm a huge fan. I try my best to bring in the culture of learning to manager groups, through different ways, and continue to mentor even outside, because I do believe that those role models for managers are very, very important. And it is a tough place for sure. I mean, the kind of the challenge and the pressure you face up and down is nothing, it's something I really admire as you grow. And obviously we've all played that role, so we know that challenge as well.
No, absolutely, I agree with you, and that's why I use the terminology backbone of any organization are middle managers. I think Sangeeta also touched upon the first session, Gen AI and the way disruption is happening. I will share one of the incidents. I don't know how many of you know about it. The first basketball, the basket, what was not open, it was like a basket. Whether you guys are aware, and still that basket is there in the International Museum. And somebody came, and the guy, when you do a basket, one guy has to pick a ladder, he has to go and take out the ball from the basket, and then game will start again. One day, one guy came with an innovation and said, can we cut it from the down? So just imagine with that disruption what has happened. That person has lost his job, right? And then what he's going to do? In next 6 months to 1 year, that person has improvised, and he became somebody on the way to become an umpire and a referee. That's the change, what I have seen it's happening from the past. And now Gen AI, with ChatGPT and Bard and whatnot, we are talking about what's going to happen with different roles. So Jayasri, towards this particular point, the role of leaders are getting really difficult. There are multiple questions, and how they are going to communicate with the middle managers, with the junior folks. So how you see a leadership communication towards these changes?
Sure. I think communication, as we all know, is a very critical parameter, and amidst this change scenario, it's even more severe. I would expect that the leaders, when they are trying to communicate or when they are trying to behave themselves, because how we behave is also one mode of a communication. Your intent and action should be aligned. So what you think through and how you reflect, and every step matters. And the second is, when they are communicating about the change, they shouldn't give the feel that it is just for a compliance. There should be a demonstration of commitment, and as well as any small success has to be celebrated. That's more crucial. Another critical parameter that any leader should take care when in a change scenario is giving that feel of secureness to the team. And then only their mindset will be open to receive more ideas and to evolve themselves out. So that giving that sense of secureness when you're interacting with the next layer, like the middle management layer or the fresher, that's more crucial for a leader in the communication front.
No, absolutely, absolutely, I agree with you. So again, question for the audience: how many you think, and you heard about innovation multiple times in your KPIs, right? You have to innovate, put something on the KPIs. What do you think, whether innovation is part of center of excellence of your organization, or whether it's just in the KPI and we have to fill something? Can you raise your hand? It's responsibility of a center of excellence, or? So everyone agrees we are part of innovation. And this is one of the challenge while we talk about innovation, but how you can bring that innovative culture in the organization, right? I will give you an example. When we talk about innovation, one of the banking organization from Europe, they are calling that particular innovation platform as unstoppable. So anyone in their organization, they can come with their ideas. There is a set of people, they will evaluate your ideas. If it's relevant, you will get a 6 months time completely funded, and you will work in a startup model. So this is what organizations are doing, and this is also the requirement from the people, why innovation is something we are only talking about it, but how we are going to imbibe in the culture. So I will start with you, Jayasri, in HCL, or within your previous organization, how you see putting that innovation culture embedded and integrated. It's not only the role of a leader, but complete organization, how you see that innovation culture.
Sure, definitely. So innovation today, I'll put it as, it's not as an added value that anybody is bringing in. Today, it has become as part of your job. And today's innovation focus is about collaboration. How much you can integrate the multiple components to create a solution and applying what you have learned. I understand the JEE entrance exam where we differentiate between the CBSE to JEE to the state board is about how we are able to apply, and that comes in the term of innovation. And today, earlier application was about applying the technology, was about how will I write a feature in an enhanced way, how will I bring in a performance improvement, etc. But today it is about how do you create a new solution by taking a team A's component solution, team B's component solution, and then meeting up with the customer needs. So we do have some events like the hackathons where it's an open forum allowing multiple entities to come along. And for innovation, there are some measurements that we do, encouraging people to do it. And again, on the same path, I just wanted to quote what the Facebook CEO, Meta CEO had told: done is better than expecting perfect. So it's better that we take those incremental steps and plan for it, and that moderates and brings the culture into the system.
Absolutely. So if I will move it to you, Deepa, on the innovation culture, how you see you are imbibing, and not only in your organization, in your previous or any experience you would like to share, organizations are trying to embed that innovation culture?
Yeah, I think, see, the interesting thing is when we put it on engineers, okay, go innovate, right? It's like, okay, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? I want to innovate. Like, where do I start, right? So it's important to kind of, I think, step back a little bit, because the word innovation is starting to become like, it's almost bogging down people, because you put in their goals, so you have to innovate. Okay, what does that mean to me as an engineer? I think there's a couple of pre-steps or foundational blocks that are important. I think it's important for developers and engineers to have exposure. Conferences, there's developer summits. There are things that are happening in ecosystems that companies need to take advantage of. Certainly a huge proponent of sending our teams outside so that they learn what's going on in the world outside. Otherwise, honestly, we get into our sprints and we just, get to the next sprint and the next sprint and the year just goes by. I think stopping and spending some time to give exposure. So education is an important part, trainings, conferences, going and actually, maybe some lead code challenges, things that are happening in the ecosystem. We need to give time to our teams first to educate and learn. And I think that's skipping that step and trying to say, let's do innovation is very, very tough. But, I've seen a lot of success in things like startup, bringing startups to the company to talk about their ideas, because that's another way to infuse into an existing company how, how other startups, how startups think. And startups are usually somehow that early part of innovation. You think of they have an idea and they kind of implement it really fast, because as you grow into a large company, it gets harder to embed innovation. So I would say those two are like probably 3 steps. But of course, when you're in an organization running a team, right? How do you embed innovation into theirs? So the ways I would think about it is having technical mentors, because what happens is having those ideas that come in, but having the brainstorming within your team with people who are probably experts or SMEs or architects who can actually advise Scrum teams on what is an innovative way to think about it. And I think otherwise what happens, it's a one-off, innovation day or a hackathon or something that we can all, of course, we can all do that. We put in the time, you can definitely do that. But embedding it into day-to-day takes more effort in some ways. And I think that, you bring in those type of, everyday things where you have, like you mentioned that example, in the bank in Europe, where you actually have a set of people, but that again is like setting aside time and making them do it. You want the innovation to actually come into your daily products and your development and so on and so forth. And I think having strategic viewpoints on how this can be imbibed through mentorship to technical, maybe even from outside. Sometimes even universities collaborate, right? And they can give you better thought in terms of how to approach. So my point here is not just giving it as a KRI or a goal to engineers and engineering teams and managers, because it's too big, and like you said, it may just be a KPI that sits on the board. But how do you actually integrate it? And I think as leaders, we need to infuse that through these 2-3 different ways, right? Education and learning, exposure through conferences and developer summits, collaborating with startups that can come in, talk about their ideas, maybe even be mentors for your teams. And then, of course, university collaboration. And I think that all of those things, I would say, Genesys, we're doing a really good job in terms of using the ecosystem around us, as much as possible. Chennai, for me, is, really good in that, in the way we are located with, the university culture kind of around us now, more recently with the Skill India, the future skills, Nan Madhavan, taking advantage of all the things that are there within the ecosystem and then bringing that into your office is something that I really am a huge fan of, believer of, implemented within our company here today.
No, very well said. And I really want to admit, the moment you said innovation is not about having a hackathon in the organization. And with my personal experience, I can tell you, I have asked many organizations, what do you do in innovation? And the first word comes, we do hackathons. So this is the reality, but there are many organizations there on the path of how we are going to create that roadmap for innovation and embed that. So Neeraja, on the same lines, how you see with your experience, innovation is getting embedded in the culture, and if there are any secret sauce, anything that you would like to share?
Thank you, Bhaskar. I couldn't agree more with my co-panelists on what's been said. What's worked really well for us is 3 points. One is, no idea is ever too small. It always appears as a small idea when it starts, and we normally disregard some of the ideas that comes to the table. No idea is ever too small, and no idea should be left to not get further evaluated for innovation. The second is, I think, keeping an eye on the business outcome is an absolute important aspect, because no innovation ever goes through the door, for implementation, if there's no focus on the business outcome. Every innovation has to serve a business outcome. Absolutely important. Leverage the technology. There's enough and more available. But the business outcome is absolutely important. And the third element is, how do we actually channelize the emerging technologies related POCs? What we experimented in the last, I would say, 8 to 10 months has been, there's so much of conversation about AI. Is it a buzz? Is it real? Is it here to stay? I'm pretty sure each one of us go through these kind of questions in our mind every day, every minute as we hear a lot of noise. Is it a one more hype cycle? Is it going to go away? How much of a private data is going away? A lot of things that keeps hitting us every day. And you open up TechCrunch, it's going to talk about one more technology that got in today, this morning, and maybe the next few hours, the next technology got in. So what we said was, how do we channelize this? So we started something like a very small squad called the Emerging Tech Experimentation Squad. And that squad is a complete free fall. They don't get governed by organization structures. We just give them a canvas, tell them this is the business outcome we want. It's a complete plain canvas. Go draw your own picture. Figure out what technology you want to use. Just think about the business outcome that you want to accomplish. And that's yielding us a lot of results. We were quite surprised with 2 of the squad's outcomes. We gave them a complete whiteboard, and it was absolutely special. And this was important for us because if I wear an IDP hat, we are in a unique segment. We deal with students every day, and which means, we are dealing with the next gen students every day and trying to meet their aspirations and their choices every day with diminishing attention span. No student wants to even fill in, 10 or 15 kind of their own details to get counseled on which course they should progress on. So how do you service this kind of a generation, which is further and further towards the newer generation, digital technologies? So for us, innovation is something that's got to be core of our DNA. Leveraging emerging technologies and putting the right bets for us to be able to service the segment is absolutely important. So these were the 3 critical points. I'm just going to recap that for half a second. No idea is ever too small. Never lose the business outcome. And the third is always provide for emerging tech experimentation in your structures, because it's absolutely going to play a big role in each of our segments that we service.
No, absolutely. Fabulous points. And as I started with, I'm your representative. Again, one more question for all of you. How many times you have heard in your appraisal you need to be more proactive? Okay, now few more hands. So as the famous quote, we all have heard about people leave their managers, not the organization, right? There are a lot of changes happening, a lot of disruption happening. So I will start with you, Deepa, in terms of how a leader or a middle manager can build that trust and credibility, which anyways it's going to help in terms of retention. And we are facing that challenge, not right now, but our industry is like that. So how you see how leaders, any 2 or 3 pointers which you can see with your previous and current experiences, they can work on and build that credibility?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think we can all have examples of leaders who, you have had from the past, the things or the skills or their personalities that really, you felt comfortable with. And they probably are most, closely tied to one another. And those would be people who are personable. Somehow you feel that a person who sits, many times leaders sit behind glass doors. And especially during times of transformation or things happening, it becomes incredibly hard for them to actually be, knowledgeable of how much their personality, how much their the vibes they give affect the rest of the organization, and so I feel like as leaders going through these type of, latest changes in technology in the company, so on and so forth, I feel that the ability for leaders to actually be more personable, be more empathetic, be more relatable, actually supersede in many ways other things, because the more that trust comes from actually knowing a person. You think about your family, you think about people you lean in on. Those are people who you can actually open up to. And today, the old form of leadership, which is somebody who's authoritative, who barks orders and makes like through force or through stress gets it done. Those days I think are really gone and should be behind us. Today we have to be, especially with you talked about Gen Zs and millennials and all these, they don't have that ability to, take orders from top down. I've seen leaders who come in who have, through authority try to get things done, and that doesn't fly anymore. Our ability to be, relatable, personable, getting things done to, connections, and especially now with hybrid and technology being so kind of in our faces, the person who's actually going to build that trust comes from somebody who makes himself, herself much more relatable. And I think that trust is something that really is extremely hard now, also being in a virtual world or hybrid world. You turn off the camera, you don't even know the person is taking, how much of the connection are you building. And I feel that that's one thing that we need to, as leaders, keep in mind. How are you going to break those barriers to build trust in a virtual and hybrid world? And I think forming a strong relationship or bond, or, leaning in, asking, how things are going, even if it's personal stuff, or how you can help if there's challenges, is something that really goes a long way in building that connection.
No, fantastic point. I will move on, Jayasri. So on the same lines, how you see building that trust, because just taking the cue from Deepa, she talked about the things are changing very rapidly. The conventional way of leaders, generally I have heard these kind of statements, there are 50 people reporting to me, 100 people reporting to me, and that is something they're proud of. Things are changing very rapidly. So how you see, with your experience, leadership style and that building that trust, how any 2 or 3 points that you can talk about with your experiences?
Definitely the leadership styles are changing and the leadership ecosystem is changing, where empowerment is given at the bottom layers or the down layers of the hierarchical structure, where we are also getting to more of flat model of organizations. So when you have to build a trust with your team, it's about the decisiveness capability of you as a leader. If you are able to take decisions quickly and own it up and take the accountability, then it builds a trust with your next layers. And also the ability to say no to the management on appropriate situations, and also having the capability to hear no from your team, and as well as try to provide a solution for them. That creates higher credibility for a manager with the team. And do what you say what you do is a bit of superstar style. So that really adds a lot of credibility.
No, absolutely. And I will share one of the my discussion with one of the very senior leader. So I was discussing with him on the topic of millennial and Gen Z, the mindset change. And he completely flipped the question. He said, while you are talking about the new generation mindset change, whether the leadership mindset change is required or not, think about it. And based on that, Neeraja, I will go to you. How the leadership mindsets you see it's going to be changing now, and with the current era and new disruption, new technologies, how see the mindset is playing an important role?
Great question, Bhaskar. I think, the leadership mindset change is a absolutely important factor. Gone are the days when it's been directional, going back to the first point. I think what's happening with the young millennials is their aspirations are far more crystallized than what the options were earlier. They exactly know where they want to go, what they want to do, what are the various steps and the permutations and combinations to achieve the dream that they are having. So that whole entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to make very differentiated choices and bring in their self-awareness. Many of the millennials are exceptionally self-aware of what are their strengths, how do I capitalize on my strengths, and how do I actually bring it to the organization. So from a leadership style, it potentially, when I go back in history, 3 decades back, it used to be more of organization first. How do I ensure that all my resources deliver to the single goal of the organization? That's not changed today. It's about how do we match the aspirations of the millennials to meet that organizational goal. And that's a very slight shift in the mindset that leaders need to make today, so that they are able to drive far more benefits for both the individual as well as the organization. It's no longer a one-sided route where, we contribute everything only to the organization. There's got to be about every millennial is looking for what's in it for me. So the leader needs to potentially accept this fact, which means, it automatically becomes a far more safer environment for the millennials to be able to contribute where they think it's very relevant for the organization as well as for themselves. And also showing them that element of your aspirations can be met through these organizational needs, and that builds a huge elements of trust in the ecosystem. And the last bit of it is empowering them in some instances for them to go after their aspirations. It's okay. There will always be some cases where you might want to let the resource walk that extra mile to meet their aspiration, so that they are able to go bring value back to the organization. And I think leaders need to learn the art of letting go. it's an absolutely important trait that's coming together, because unless and until we let go, we're never going to empower the team or the squad to go after the dream that they're going after. And the last element is, it's okay to fail. I think we need to give that safe environment, touching upon that once again. I don't think it's going to be always a successful era for every member to be meeting every single KPI. It's okay to fail on an idea. It's okay to learn from the idea. So providing that safe environment is becoming absolutely critical, the element of risk taking. So these are elements where leaders have to have potentially a far more open-mindedness, a lot more empowered team, and allow the teams to dream and aspire for some things that they're very well capable of dreaming. That's where I see it.
No, fabulous point, and very well said. I completely believe while we celebrate success, we can celebrate failure also. There's nothing wrong. We are all learning. And I always say, if my boss asks me, I will go and say him, look, what I took a decision that point in time, for me that was right. Maybe it was a wrong right, I don't know. But let's learn from there and then move forward. Before I move to the next question, and as I promised, I'm your representative. If any questions from the panel, we can take 2 questions in the interest of time. You can raise your hand and we will pass on the mic. And then I will move on to the next question. So very briefly, I will start with you, Jayasri. Role of EQ that we always talk about, the emotional quotient and emotional intelligence, how it's playing the role. Because now, and also with the Indian culture, we spend around 8 to 10 hours in the office. That plays a very important role. How you see that?
Yeah, I'll also add the change dimension to it as well, Mr. Bhaskar. So definitely persons, how they are composing themselves in tough situations adds a lot of value in how they are able to drive a team and in the leadership role. And when the change is coming in the attribute, right, there will be a lot of resistance. Resistance comes in different dimensions. So definitely giving that space and staying calm and then ensuring that the resistance is welcome is one crucial parameter. And there is this recent similar parameter which is called a social quotient or the social intelligence, which tags to the emotional intelligence. So how you behave, like as I said, in front of the camera, not in front of the camera, or be it in front of the team or not in front of the team, or in your social network. So that also adds influence to your emotional intelligence, and definitely encourage more of being up to date on whatever the different enablements that are given by the organizations towards the mental health or the health or the work-life balances, and collaborating with the team and sort of giving them the space to come forward. So that creates the bond and also strengthens your the emotional intelligence, how you put forward in front of the team.
No, absolutely. Deepa, moving to you on the same lines on the emotional quotient, and I'm also adding what Jayasri said on the social quotient. So how you see that? Very briefly.
Yeah, briefly is awareness. I think awareness is a very kind of a loose term, but is a very important one. I think leaders need to be very aware, because what does that mean? It needs to be that you read your team, you read your room, you read your audience. You are able to quickly kind of change your skin, so to speak, based on how your team or your leaders about you and the organization are taking. And I think that EQ, emotional intelligence, one of the foundational, fundamental pieces of that is actually awareness.
Good. Neeraja, over to you.
No, I totally agree that EQ is absolutely important in the form of how do we do it. It becomes furthermore important because we just spoke a lot about openness, transparency, and then my co-panelist Jayasri mentioned about communication all the way deep down to the teams. So some of the team members, it might be the first experience in a corporate or in an industry. How do you deal with some of their different behaviors? How do you give them the confidence that what they're saying is right, and how do you nurture them? And that's where EQ probably is playing a far more important role in an open, transparent kind of a culture.
No, thank you. And we are on top of time, but I have put few surprises for the panel. So I will just do a rapid fire with eminent panelists. And the rule of the rapid fire is I will give you one word. You have to reply in one word. So I will start with you, Jayasri. Innovation.
Culture.
Okay. We will move to you, Deepa. Technology.
Creativity.
Neeraja, Gen Z.
Empowerment.
Okay, fantastic. A big round of applause for the panelists. Thank you very much. You are a nice audience. Thank you. Back to MC.
Thank you, Bhaskar and nasscom, for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar, for moderating the panel. Thank you so much, Neeraja, Deepa, and Jayasri. And now I would request Bhaskar to felicitate our panelists with a memento. Thank you so much once again. And with that panel discussion, we conclude the first segment of NASTech 2023's event.